Hello and a very good morning. You're watching the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha television with me, Frank Pereira. Here are this morning's top headlines. Union Cabinet decides to repromulgate land acquisition ordinance ahead of the April 5th deadline in the face of massive opposition in the upper house. Gujarat passes controversial Gujarat Control of Terrorism and Organised Crime Bill. It's already been rejected by the President thrice. New law allows phone taps as admissible evidence. Nearly 400 Indian nationals evacuated from Yemen last night. Naval ship leaves Aden to reach Djibouti today. Met Office warns of fresh rainfall in Jammu and Kashmir starting today after a 24-hour lull. Centre promises all help to the state. And Muhammadu Buhari is the new president of Nigeria. The country's former military ruler won the election by a huge margin. Results announced late on Tuesday. Well, the centre has decided to repromulgate the land acquisition ordinance. The original ordinance lapses on the 5th of April and has to be repromulgated to exist further. The Union Cabinet decided on the move last night, going ahead with repromulgation with the 9 amendments that were introduced in the bill that was passed in the Lok Sabha last month as per rules. The bill was not introduced in the Rajya Sabha in the backdrop of massive protests from opposition parties. MPs of more than a dozen parties had marched from Parliament to Rashtrapati Bhavan in protest. The pending measure titled Right to Fair Compensation and Transparency in Land Acquisition, Rehabilitation and Resettlement Amendment Bill 2015 sought to replace the ordinance that was promulgated in December. The recommendation for repromulgating the ordinance has been sent to the President. He is expected to sign it before the 5th of April deadline. Once it is reissued, this will be the 11th ordinance by the Narendra Modi government. And joining me for a chat this morning to talk about this is the political editor of the Business Standard, Aditi Fardes. Aditi, thank you for joining me. Good morning.
Good morning.
As far as repromulgating this particular ordinance is concerned, I mean, it was expected because the deadline is fast approaching. The 5th of April is the deadline. But does this give more fuel to the opposition, really, who've been criticizing the government of calling it, an ordinance Raj government?
Well, as far as ordinances go, yes, the opposition has a grievance and they're saying that they should not happen. In fact, the President of India has also said that, we should not run a government that is run on ordinances. But the land acquisition ordinance particularly, now I think will find a little bit more acceptability in the Rajya Sabha than previously. The reason being that not only have 9 amendments been introduced in it, but also I think the government is much more receptive to accepting the suggestions made by the opposition, knowing that it does not have a majority in the upper house. So,
is the government going to dilute it further, do you think? Because the Congress has got, several demands as far as this particular bill is concerned, and they have the upper hand in the upper house.
Absolutely, you're quite right. The Congress, the Trinamool and the left, I think together will not change their view on the ordinance and the changes in the bill, which they view as anti-farmer. But I think all smaller parties, including the Samajwadi Party, which has as many as 15 MPs in the Rajya Sabha, may be persuaded to change their mind when their concerns are addressed in the bill. So my feeling is that several amendments will be moved by these parties, and the government will say that yes, we are ready to accept these amendments, we are ready to accept these changes, and after that the pattern of voting will be such that the bill might just get through.
The government was able to break through the opposition ranks just before Parliament was prorogued a few days ago. So is that going to happen again? Can we expect some of the stalwarts of the BJP, meeting with the other leaders from the opposition and trying to break the ranks? I'm
absolutely certain that that has actually already happened because we saw the Samajwadi Party's Naresh Agarwal in an interview to Business Standard take a total U-turn. And say that if our concerns about acquisition of multi-crop land are taken on board, we will be ready to support this bill. Similarly, the Biju Janata Dal also has said that it will be ready provided its concerns are met. Bhartrihari Mahtab, who is a member of the Lok Sabha from Cuttack, has already said that our concerns are being discussed with the BJP. So I don't think that, see, no law is immutable. We should not make it a matter of ego or pride, or
Yes.
it is what has to be acceptable to the people of India and what makes it least painful for the people of India, especially those whose land is acquired. It's true that the Congress brought about a bill after a lot of consultation, lot of consensus building, lot of talking to people and taking their ideas on board. But if land is an asset which cannot be pushed to improve people's lives, and they are committed to, for several generations, to eking a very meager livelihood through cultivating land which is fast losing its fertility and should really be used for other things, then I think it's time to revisit the issue.
Do you think this issue, this particular bill, has been unnecessarily too politicized by the political parties?
No, I don't think unnecessarily is not the word I would use. Land is a very sensitive matter. The relationship between a man and his land is very is indescribable actually. And if you take away his land, you strike at the very root of his existence. Not only that, what you do with that land after you take it away is equally important. And what he gets out of your taking away his land is also very important. So I think all these things have to be considered. And it is an intensely political issue, so it's not politicized. It is a political issue. And I think everyone has to, decide where they stand on this.
And do you see this bill being introduced in the next session of Parliament in the Upper House?
I'm absolutely certain that it will be introduced in the Upper House in the next session, and I have a feeling that in the interim, the government will work very hard in a, I have to say, in a much more humble fashion than it did earlier, with much more humility and with much more receptiveness to listening to suggestions. But I think also that the Prime Minister is absolutely clear that changes in the land bill are absolutely essential. And I think those changes will come about.
All right, Aditi Fadnis, we'll have to leave to that. Thank you so much for putting things into perspective for us and sharing your expert comments on this particular subject. Moving on now, the Gujarat Control of Terrorism and Organised Crime Bill of 2015 that was approved by the majority vote is now headed for presidential assent. The renamed legislation retains provisions like allowing police to tap telephonic conversations and submit them in court of evidence. It was passed yesterday despite stiff resistance. Here's a detailed report.
After being rejected twice, the stringent Gujarat Control of Terrorism and Organised Crime Bill was finally passed on Tuesday. It allows law enforcement agencies to tap telephones, make confessions made to police admissible in court, and suspects to be detained longer than at present.
गुजकोक में जो हमने प्रावधान रखे वो खास करके पुलिस को इन्वेस्टिगेशन में ज़्यादा सुविधा और सरलता प्राप्त हो, उसको काफ़ी व्यापकता स्कोप मिले और पुलिस जो एविडेंस एकत्र करती है इसमें अभी जो टेक्नोलॉजी का यूज होता है, समझ लो कि कोई आतंकवादी मोबाइल से या सैटेलाइट फोन से कोई इंस्ट्रक्शन देता है और कोई बम धमाका होता है, तो ऐसे जो टेक्नोलॉजी का उपयोग करते हुए जो लोग ऐसे गंभीर प्रकार की गुनाही कृत्य करते हैं, ऐसे लोगों ने जो इंस्ट्रूमेंट यूज किए हैं, जो टेक्नोलॉजी यूज की है, उसी टेक्नोलॉजी का उपयोग करके उनके अगेंस्ट में कोर्ट में केस भी पुरवार कर सके.
The Gujarat Assembly passed the law after the opposition Congress walked out without voting on the contentious clauses of the legislation.
कानून बनता है लॉ एंड ऑर्डर और आवाम के हित के लिए. अनफॉर्चुनेटली गुजरात में और इस देश में बीजेपी कानून को भी पॉलिटिकल माइलेज के लिए यूज करती है. हमने कहा कि दो प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ इंडिया ने गुजकोक के 3 सेक्शन हटाने को बोले हैं, तब आप ये नहीं कर रहे हो, ये अल्ट्रा वायरस होगा और हम इस पाप में साथ नहीं दे सकते. हमें हाउस छोड़ के निकलना पड़ा.
The bill is said to be on the lines of the Maharashtra Control of Organised Crime Act. It was rejected in 2004 and 2008 by then Presidents APJ Abdul Kalam and Pratibha Patil, Both suggested amendments in provisions related to telephone interception and confessions to police being considered as admissible evidence. The bill was passed for a third time and is pending with the President. The Assembly passed a fresh draft of the bill with a new name, the Gujarat Control of Terrorism and Organised Crime Bill.
You will find in the last 2 decades, we had TADA, we had POTA, we had similar laws. And those laws, unfortunately, did not serve the purpose for which they were in fact enacted. This law also, I am afraid, is likely to be misused unless Gujarat government has some device to check this abuse.
जहाँ तक सुरक्षा का मामला है, उसमें किसी को कोई आपत्ति नहीं होनी चाहिए. लेकिन अगर किसी को राजनीतिक प्रतिद्वंदियों को दबाने के लिए, राजनीतिक प्रतिद्वंदियों की जासूसी करने के लिए यह कानून बनाया गया है, आम आदमी को दबाने के लिए यह कानून बनाया गया है, तो ये बहुत गलत है.
Justifying the provisions, the statements and objects laid down in the bill state that it's necessary in the present day when organized criminal syndicates make extensive use of wire and oral communication. The statement also adds that existing laws are inadequate to curb the menace of organized crimes. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, nearly 350 Indians were evacuated from Yemen's southern port city of Aden late on Tuesday. Now, the evacuated people will be taken to Djibouti, a country neighboring Yemen, and will be brought to India by air. Those evacuated include 220 men, 101 women and 28 children. They were taken to the Indian Navy ship INS Sumitra. Defense Ministry sources said that the ship left Yemen late on Tuesday night. An official said that the ship sailed into a barrage of bombs to evacuate Indians stranded there. Under an operation named Op Rahat, 2 warships, destroyer INS Mumbai and stealth frigate INS Tarkash, are on their way to Djibouti. The 2 warships and 2 passenger liners which left from Kochi on Monday will join course in the Arabian Sea, a move as a composite group to Djibouti. According to the External Affairs Ministry, nearly 4,000 Indians are stranded in Yemen. Well, we'll slip into a short break now, but still to come, gunmen take a prosecutor hostage at a courthouse in Istanbul, forcing Turkish special forces to storm the building. That and much more coming up. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
First half of the budget session is over and it has turned out to be one of the most fruitful sessions in recent times.
Amendment number 233 is adopted.
Watch special report on 234th session of Rajya Sabha at 10:30 p.m. on Wednesday and 10:30 a.m. on Thursday.
Tradition dating back centuries. A cultural heritage that inspires and warms at once. Magic that awes. Rajya Sabha Television brings you events that embrace the wonders of India's classical arts. Conversations with the biggest names in the culture and music. Rajya Sabha Television, democracy at work.
Hello and a very warm welcome to a brand new edition of World Panorama with me, Frank Pereira.
Barack Obama has been elected on the basis that I will no longer take America into wars, and in fact quite the opposite, I will pull America out of wars.
According to the Indian government, fishermen were not at fault.
The US intervention in Iraq set the stage for exacerbation of these conflicts, and then the intervention in Syria.
Watch World Panorama at these times on Rajya Sabha Television. Back, you're watching Rajya Sabha television. Well, Jammu and Kashmir braces for more rains today and over the next few days. As per predictions put out by the Met Office, on the positive side, it's been improved weather in the valley over the last 24 hours with water levels receding in the Jhelum. The centre has promised more help if necessary. Here's more.
The Kashmir Valley got a respite on Tuesday from a rising Jhelum river. There was no rain, a clearer sky and receding flood waters in different parts of the region. Fire and Emergency Services Department swung into action. Nearly 25 tenders with dewatering pumps were stationed across capital Srinagar to pump out water from the roads. NDRF continues to carry out rescue and relief operations. The centre has assured that the situation is now under control.
जहाँ पे हम मेजर करते हैं, वहाँ पे लगभग 3 फीट का पानी नीचे गया है और इसी तरह अन्य इलाकों में भी. सो मुझे लगता है कि स्थिति में काफी सुधार आई है, लेकिन ये केवल फ्लड की बात है.
We have given the call to the general public, especially जो भी हमारे यहाँ पर बुजुर्ग लोग हैं, पेशेंट्स हैं, बच्चे हैं, उनको कहा है कि सेफ जोन में आप एंटर कीजिए.
अभी सिचुएशन कंट्रोल में है और हमारा टीम वहाँ काम कर रहे हैं और राज्य सरकार के साथ मिल करके और हमारे केंद्र का वहाँ जितने भी काम करने वाले टीम पहुँचे हुए हैं, इसलिए कोई अभी घटना की बात नहीं है, वो सब नियंत्रण में है.
The national highway linking the valley to Jammu was also reopened after it was shut down due to landslides.
1-2 दिन पहले यहाँ पर काफ़ी ज़्यादा लैंडस्लाइड्स आ गए थे और कल इसको थोड़ा बहुत क्लियर किया गया था क्योंकि कुछ व्हीकल्स जो थी चिनैनी में, समरौली में और खुद में कुछ स्टैंडर्ड हो गई थी व्हीकल्स, तो रास्ता ना खुलने की वजह से कल जो है इनको यहाँ से वापस ये चले गए थे. फॉर द टाइमिंग ये खोल दिया गया था, तो अभी तक ये खुला ही है और मौसम को देखते हुए अभी हम ये देख रहे हैं कि ये कब तक खुला रहेगा.
Meanwhile, the Met Office has warned of more heavy rains over the next few days. It raised concerns of more flooding across the valley.
We have issued weather warning of heavy rainfall from 1st to 3rd. And thereafter weather will gradually improve.
The centre has assured help and kept more paramilitary forces on standby. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, let's take a look now at some other news-making events lined up for today in our segment, The Day Ahead. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will visit Rourkela today to inaugurate the modernized and expanded units of state-owned steel plants. The new facilities of the SAIL plant have been completed at an investment of 12,000 crore rupees. Prime Minister is also expected to announce 36,000 crore rupees capacity expansion plan for the plant. This will be Modi's first visit to Odisha since assuming office. Commerce and Industry Minister Nirmala Sitharaman will today release Foreign Trade Policy of 2015 to 2020. The government is expected to promote value-added exports through this new foreign trade policy and keep it in sync with Make in India and Digital India programs. The policy will also facilitate the ease of doing business in the country. The service tax proposals announced in the Union Budget 2015-16 will come into effect from today. Finance Minister Arun Jaitley had come out with a host of proposals last month to rationalize service tax. Entry tickets to museums, zoo and tiger reserves would become cheaper, while business class air travel, investment in mutual funds and chit funds would become expensive. The Supreme Court will hear former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh's petition challenging his summoning by the Special Court in connection with the coal block allocation. A Delhi court had asked Mr. Singh and 5 others to appear as accused in the alleged irregular allotment of Talabira 2 coal block allocation. In his petition, Manmohan Singh had termed the summons as ridiculous. Moving on to some international news now. Nigerian opposition leader Muhammadu Buhari is set to be the country's new president. Buhari came out on top after counting ended late on Tuesday by a huge margin of votes. Buhari secured 52.4% of the votes, while Goodluck Jonathan trailed behind with just 43.7%. International observers hailed the election despite allegations of fraud.
Nigeria has voted for a change. Muhammadu Buhari becomes the first opposition leader in Nigeria to win the presidential election by a margin of over 2 million votes. Supporters flocked onto the streets waving flags, chanting slogans to celebrate a stunning election victory.
They are out here celebrating because people are tired of impunity, corruption, carelessness, insecurity. As you can see, everybody here in Kaduna, we voted for General Muhammadu Buhari, not because he's a northerner or a Muslim, but because we believe he's going to bring change.
We are all happy
because we are witnessing history. History in the sense that this is the first time in Nigeria that a sitting government would be voted out of power using purely democratic means. Before now, when governments are not popular, they either sit tight or they are removed by the military.
Incumbent President Goodluck Jonathan telephoned Buhari to acknowledge his defeat. He also welcomed the decision by the people and said that he will continue to serve the country. His party also issued a statement calling for calm, sober celebrations and warning supporters not to attack opponents.
We were at the middle of a meeting with the international observers to try to see how we can still water the tension down. I called General Buhari, we are going to see him. He told me Mr. President has called him at about 5:15 and congratulated him and conceded defeat.
This is the fourth time 72-year-old Buhari has sought the presidency. He ruled Nigeria from January 1984 until August 1985, taking charge after a military coup in December 1983. Speculations rage as Buhari during his 18 months in charge had imprisoned journalists and opposition activists without trial and executed drug traffickers by firing squad in a dictatorial manner. However, with a looming Boko Haram threat in the country, people are expecting a major paradigm shift. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, nuclear talks between 6 world powers and Iran will continue into Wednesday, though the official self-imposed deadline expires at midnight of March 31st. US negotiators have determined that they are willing to continue talks with Iran till then, as long as conversations are productive. The US State Department said that enough progress had been made to merit working through a midnight deadline, even as they added that several difficult issues still remain to be sorted out. Diplomats and negotiators were still working as the March 31st deadline approached, but more time appeared necessary to reach a framework deal. How long talks will continue was unclear.
Our negotiators have determined, over the context of a mostly sleepless night last night and long negotiations over the course of the day in Europe today, that they're going to continue these conversations tomorrow as long as, well, if necessary, and as long as the conversations continue to be productive.
A shootout at a courthouse in Istanbul in a hostage crisis on Tuesday night has resulted in the death of a Turkish prosecutor. 2 gunmen who took him hostage have also been killed. Gunshots were heard and smoke was seen rising from the scene after special forces stormed the building. Prosecutor Mehmet Selim Kiraz was apparently taken hostage because he had headed an inquiry into the death of a boy during anti-government protests in 2013. A banned Marxist revolutionary group is said to be behind the hostage-taking incident. Turkish Prime Minister Ahmet Davutoglu said that the attackers had posed as lawyers to enter the courthouse. He has promised a detailed security review and investigation of the incident.
20-25'te başlayan operasyon kısa zamanda tamamlanmış. Savcımız ağır yaralı olarak hastaneye kaldırılmış. Çok yoğun çabalara rağmen de maalesef biraz önce başhekimle de benim de görüşmelerim olmuştu. Hayatını kaybetmiştir.
Well, we'll slip into another short break here, but all the sports updates lined up for you on the other side. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
Watch the world come alive in your living room. Defining moments. Momentous events. News Tonight, your window to the world. Every night at 9 p.m.
Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha television. Let's now get you a roundup of the news and updates from around the world in our World Wrap. International donors at a UN conference in Kuwait have pledged $3.8 billion help for victims of Syria's civil war. The UN seeks to help 18 million people inside Syria and those scattered throughout the region by more than 4 years of civil war. Tuesday's meeting was attended by nearly 80 governments and dozens of aid agencies. Iraqi forces claim to have seized the city of Tikrit from Islamic State militants on Tuesday after US-led airstrikes cleared the way for ground operations. Iraqi Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi announced that Tikrit had been liberated after security forces and popular mobilization units made rapid inroads into the city. However, military officials said some areas of the city were yet to be entered because roads and buildings were heavily rigged with explosives. The self-declared authority in Libya's capital sacked its Prime Minister Omar al-Hassi on Tuesday. Omar al-Hassi was replaced temporarily by a deputy, Khalifa al-Ghawi, for a month. MPs voted to oust him following allegations he misled Parliament about government finances. Omar al-Hassi was appointed in August to lead an alternative government after Islamist militias seized the capital. Soldiers from Chad and Niger on Tuesday drove Boko Haram Islamist militants from a border town in northeastern Nigeria. The militants have been driven away from most of the positions they held earlier this year. Niger military sources said that airstrikes began before an offensive by ground troops. They also added that the nearby village of Abadam was also liberated during the day and several Boko Haram fighters were killed in clashes. Let's now bring you up to date with the sports news from around the world in our sports beat. Indian batsman Virat Kohli remained the highest placed Indian at 4th place in the latest ICC ODI rankings. Opener Shikhar Dhawan rose to the 6th spot after ending the World Cup as India's top scorer. Captain Mahendra Singh Dhoni is the other Indian batsman to be inside the top 10, hanging on to the 8th spot. No Indian bowler features in the top 10. Andy Murray beat Kevin Anderson in 3 sets to move into the quarterfinals of the Miami Open. The British number 1 won 6-4, 3-6, 6-3 to reach 500 career wins, becoming the 46th man in the Open era to do so. 8th seed Thomas Berdych also advanced to the quarterfinals after Frenchman Gael Monfils retired in the 2nd set. 10-man Belgium held on to beat Israel 1-0 in the European Championship qualifier to go at the top of Group B. Fellaini's early goal gave a crucial lead to Belgium as they were reduced to 10 men after captain Vincent Kompany was sent off midway through the second half. That's it on this edition of the Breakfast News. Have a nice day.